Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here. This is really a tremendous turnout. My name is Polly Donaldson. I'm the director of the DC Department of Housing and Community Development, and I want to welcome you to our Vacant to Vibrant auction briefing. First, though, I do want to thank our host here. This is the DC Housing Finance Agency, our partner in financing affordable housing here in the district. Todd Lee, Executive Director, is here. Thank you, Todd, for hosting here. Appreciate it very much. I also want to introduce a couple of our staff members that are here that will be helping with the Q&A portion and presentation on the auction details. Allison Ladd is our Deputy Director. She'll be speaking in just a moment. And Bonda Orders is here from the department and overseeing the PAD division as well. And our videographer is Gwen Cofield, who's our communications director. This is going out on Facebook Live and will also be recorded so that we will be able to share it with you online so that if you have additional questions as things go. I'm delighted to be able to tell you that we are prepared to go live with the auction later this week on the 18th. My job is to tee it up a bit. How many of you were at one of our info sessions last week? Okay, good. Then those that weren't, those who were, some of this may sound familiar, but those that weren't, let me give you a little bit of context for what it is that we're doing here today. I run the Department of Housing and Community Development. Our mission is related to producing and preserving affordable housing and to ensure that we are revitalizing our neighborhoods across the district. Taking vacant and blighted property and returning it to productive use is a very important part and priority for the department. So in addition to preserving and producing affordable housing and encouraging greater levels of home ownership, and also addressing and being part of the Mayor Bowser's effort to end homelessness in the district, we are also addressing the vacant and blighted property in our cities that is not benefiting our city. And we're starting first with the properties that DHCD owns. We have a division called the Property Acquisition and Disposition Division, known as PAD, that has ownership of about 90 sites across the city. Half of them are already in disposition. Half of them are already either under contract or in a competitive bid process. But the other half are not, and that's why we're here today. I had the pleasure of being with the mayor on December 22nd as she fulfilled a commitment that the department had made to ensure that every one of our 90 sites would be in disposition by the end of 2017. So on December 22nd, she announced the 5-point Vacant to Vibrant DC plan. And I'm going to walk you through that now in part so you know that the auction, while a major piece of it, is not the only action we are taking to ensure that the properties we have are returned to productive use. So action one is what is about the auction. We have 35 sites in the auctions. We expect they will create at least 50 units of affordable housing, workforce housing for working families in the district. The auction will be conducted by a professional auctioneer, Alex Cooper and Sons. Matt Cooper is here from Alex Cooper and will be available to answer questions later on in this program. So the auction does begin on January 18th. There are 35 sites across the district. Many of you, I'm sure, have looked at the website dhcd.alexcooper.com and have seen which sites they are, where they're located, some photos, exterior, and I know interior photos are on the way for some of the properties that we were able to enter safely. Action 2 in the Vacant to Vibrant plan is related specifically to helping small business CBEs be able to help develop workforce housing. So through a solicitation that is available for registered CBEs only, we have 3 sites currently that are available for that, and we anticipate additional sites being added to that in a month or so. So this is a specific certification. If you are a certified business enterprise, Separate from the 35 sites in the auction are these additional sites that you can bid on. You need to go to our website or to the site where you access the district government solicitations and opportunities as a registered CBE. So we encourage you to do that and to check that out as well. Action 3 is with our partners here at the DC Housing Finance Agency. It's the housing investment platform where through collaborations with the DC Housing Finance Agency and small developers in the district, we are creating 2 additional sites of workforce homeownership opportunities. And those sites have actually already been solicited for by the DC Housing Finance Agency, and they will be able to share more information on that in the coming weeks. Action 4, we know that some of our sites, some of those 90 sites, and in this case 2 specific ones, you can't build on. But they are beautiful and they are treasured green spaces and need to be maintained as such. And so we are looking specifically to our partnership with Casey Trees to ensure that those properties not only are maintained as green space, that the heritage trees are preserved, and that we are able to say proudly that they are positive assets in a neighborhood versus those that are not kept and not made part of the neighborhood in that way. So that's our action number 4. And then finally, and this is because the district is a leader nationally in affordable housing development, and one of the national trends that we know is important for us to fully investigate and to test is that of tiny homes. Now, how many of you watch HGTV? Yes, right, I do too. And so I know that tiny homes are actually a nationwide trend. But we want to make sure through a pilot demonstration project here in the district and in partnership with the IDEA Public Charter School, they receive training in construction trades and will be helping with the construction of the tiny home on a site in Ward 7. I can tell you that this will be a demonstration project so that residents of the district will be able to come and see what it looks like to have a tiny home on a lot in a neighborhood. What are some of the ancillary benefits in terms of green development, green construction, in terms of education programs to really learn more about that. So we're very excited about that opportunity, and more will be coming as we are looking to do that. But we're very proud of our partnership with the charter school in that way. So those are the 5 action points. Mayor Bowser has made it very clear that she wants us to move expeditiously. She wants us to be able to not only get the properties and out to auction, but also then to fruition, to where new residents are able to be home buyers. Workforce housing is available in neighborhoods that may not always be able to be at a price point that all can reach. And so we're just terrifically proud of this effort. I want to thank the DHCD team for all they've been doing to put this together, our colleagues at HFA as well. And I look forward to being able to see the fruition, the results of the auction. As I said, bidding starts later this week, and more details on that follow right now. So let me turn it over to DHCD Deputy Director Allison Ladd, and she will walk you through the steps of the auction. Thank you, Allison.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Director. We are looking forward to the activities of this next week and to sharing with you how you can participate in the upcoming auction. Let me just, before we start on auction details, let's just get a sense of the room. I know we have standing room only, which is really exciting. So let's see, who here are residents that are looking for affordable home ownership opportunities? Can you raise your hand? Okay, we have a good number of people who are looking for home ownership. How about developers, those that are interested in developing these lots and vacant homes into new housing? Okay, there's probably twice as many individuals in the development category. How about investors? People who are looking to hire a contractor, they're just wanting to be part of the energy that's happening in the city. Are there a lot of investors in the room? There are just a few investors in the room. And then just others who are generally interested in what we're trying to do. How about those? Oh, I thought the whole room's hand would go up, everybody wants to know. So I'm just kidding. So let's get into the details because I think that's why you guys are all here today. So as the director mentioned, we're having an online auction and it's going to last for 5 days. It starts on Thursday, January 18th at 1 p.m. and it'll last through January 23rd at 1 p.m. So that's the 5-day period whereby your bids will be able to be taken on the Alex Cooper Vacant to Vibrant auction website. And so the website is here, as the director stated, it's dhcd.alexcooper.com, and it does have a tremendous amount of information on that website. As the director stated, we really want to thank our partners, Alex Cooper, Matt, who's here. They've really done a yeoman's job over the last month just to get us ready to be here today, but also to have all that information on the site, be it photographs or documents or affordability. All those types of information is on that website, so it's a great one-stop shop. Second, we are having up to 35 sites that will be available on the auction. You can see that on the website individually by address. You can map it, so you can see here, this is just a snapshot of where all of the sites are in the city. There are a significant number in Ward 7 and 8 east of the river where we have some properties that really need some attention. And then we have a few again on west of the river, and it all can be found again on that website. About 2/3 of the sites are vacant lots. So about 2/3 of the sites are vacant lots. About 1/3 of the site are houses. And some of them have been longer periods of vacancy, and others are sites that really didn't finish construction. So you'll see that when you're looking at the sites, and when you're looking at the interior pictures, you'll be able to see where there's some needs and some adjustments that have to be made to make those houses into homes. The last point on this first slide about how we're going to gain affordability is just to let you know, these sites are going to be sold as is. So the sites are going to be sold as is. So I think that's just an important piece. Over the information sessions last week, we did get a couple questions about, is there any additional type of work that the department plans to do at the site before the auction or during this process? And the answer is no, not at this time. We will continue regular maintenance, grass cutting, snow removal, things like that, but we are not planning any substantial plans or renovation for any of the sites that are there. It is important to note that some of the lots may have had a structure on it before, so there may have been a building there that's been demolished. So just as you're going around looking at the sites, just know that that's another component of what is in the auction. So let's go to the next slide. The bidding process. So the bidding process for all the sites is the same. So it's going to be one process for all of the sites. First, we need you to register at alexcooper.com, that website that we talked about. From what I understand, we have over 500 individuals who have already registered on the site. So you can see the demand is tremendous for what we're trying to do here. You can still register, so continue to look on the site if you haven't registered, so don't be discouraged by the number, but know that there is a tremendous amount of energy. Second, there is a $5,000 deposit required for every site. So if you want to bid on multiple sites, you will have to put down $5,000 deposit for each site. We do accept a credit card hold, so that is something for you to consider. And you can use multiple credit cards even if you're the same entity. But know that you do have to put down a $5,000 deposit for each site. Third, the minimum bid for every site is $20,000. So that's our floor. And so wanted to make sure that you know that, again, it's all the same. So register on Alex Cooper's website, $5,000 deposit for each site, $20,000 minimum bid. So what happens once the auction closes? So it's January 23rd and the auction closes. We will know who were the highest bidders for each site. At that time, we'll be able to then understand, okay, is the bidder up to date on all of their taxes? Want to do some of those good actor checks and balances. So we want to make sure that you're going to be a good partner to the city as we move forward. So what we're estimating is that it'll take us no longer than 30 days for us to make sure you're notified if you're the winning bidder. So you will know if you are the winning bidder because you'll be watching the same sites that we are, but just know that we will verify it for you in no later than 30 days. You also will have to put down a deposit of 10% within 48 hours. So I made that sound a little bit incongruous, but we will make sure that that's clear for all of you, is that we do expect a 10% deposit, and that would be of your final bid.
Is that within 2 days after the 23rd or 2 days after the 30-day period when you notify us?
The 23rd.
Currently 2 days after the 23rd. So I'm saying it's maximum of 30 days, and part of that is because what if one of the bids falls through? And so one site may have more than one awardee, so it's just something we're gonna have to work through. So, but that is the expectation. And I would just ask once, if I could, we would like to hold questions to the questions and answer section. There are only about 2 more slides before we get to that period, so I'll talk more quickly. On the down payment side, again, it's 10% due within 48 hours. The full bid amount will actually be due at closing, and that is what we expect about 90 to 120 days after the auction, so after January 23rd. 5% fee is due to the auctioneer, and there is going to be a floor of $3,000. So it'll be $3,000 or 5% of the actual bid. So we'll move on to the next slide. So as the director said, we are the Department of Housing and Community Development. So our assets we want to use to create more home ownership that's affordable and also possible rental opportunities. You may have noticed there are a couple sites that are more than 1 unit, and so rental housing is a possibility. Here you'll see a maximum household income schedule. This schedule is updated annually by the Department of Housing and Community Development. The image on the right-hand side is simply a snapshot from that income schedule. And it'll show you 80% of the median family income as well as 120% of the median family income. So what I neglected to tell you is that is our affordability target. Workforce housing, 80% of median family income and 120% of median family income. The 80% of median family income is just related to those properties that have federal funds. There are about a half a dozen properties that have federal funds in them, and I can tell you initially they are mostly the ones with structures. So the lots are up to 120, the houses are up to 80% of AMI because those already have federal funds in those projects. Let's see. I was trying to tell you what the actual income is, so bear with me. Let me see if I can get closer. So as it relates to what does 80% of median family income and 120% of median family income mean? For the 80% of median family income, for a household size of 1, that equals $61,750. And if you jump to a household of 4, it equals $88,250. So that's for 80% median family income. Again, household of 1, about 62,000, household of 4, about 88,000. Moving on up to 120%, household of 1 is $92,650. Household of 4 is $132,350. So again, 120%, one person, $92,650, four person, $132,350. So you can see how it's adjusted by family size as well as by percentage of the median family income. On the next slide, we're talking about sales prices. We focused on the sales prices component because the majority of the properties we believe will be turned into home ownership. We do have a rental schedule as well, but I did want to focus on the home ownership side. Again, this sales price schedule is updated annually, similarly to the way in which the income schedule is updated annually. So here, from a detail standpoint, for 80% multifamily units, the maximum purchase price for a 2-bedroom is $284,000. So the maximum purchase price for a 2-bedroom at 80% is $284,000. But say you wanted to build a 4-bedroom unit, then it would be $370,000. Well, $374,000. So let's move on to 120% of AMI. The maximum sales price for 120% at 2 bedrooms would be $442,900. The maximum price for a 4-bedroom unit is $582,300. So these two slides together will be able to show you how you can put together your bid that you'd like to submit, how you reach the affordability requirements, how you're maximizing the land asset that the district is auctioning off to help reach affordability, and then you'll have to take into consideration your construction costs and other things. Okay, moving on to the next slide. Milestones. So this question came up a lot during the last info sessions last week. And so we wanted to give you a sense of development milestones for each of these sites. So I'm going to walk through it one by one, and that way those that may not be able to see the slide, you can hear it. So first, auction. Again, the auction is January 18th through the 23rd. Down payment due 48 hours after the auction. Notification of the winning bidder is, we're looking, I said maximum 30 days, but we're looking to notify you within 3. Winning bidder signs purchase agreement within 3 days of being contacted. Regarding DHCD, DCRA permitting, I know that came up during the informational sessions. We will arrange a meeting with the winning bidders and DCRA between the auction end date and no later than March 18th. So we know that the permitting process is going to be something that we'll need to coordinate and also make sure those that are winning the bid have a point of contact so that we can move swiftly to bring these properties back into homeownership. Public hearing. The DHCD is required to hold a public hearing by our statute, and we will expect to hold that public hearing no later than March 18th. Second, DHCD by our statute is required to also submit the winning bidders to the DC City Council, and that is a 60-day passive approval. So we expect that to occur no later than May 18th, 2018. And then the director of DHCD will sign that purchase agreement by the end of May of 2018. And that will occur after we have the public hearing and after City Council gives its approval. And then we'd like to close within 30 days. So closing would take place no later than June 30th of 2018. Next, after closing and during closing, we also want you to confirm your development team. We know that some of you here are maybe putting that together, but we think it's important for you to know who your architect is, who your contractor is, so that they're familiar with all of the rules and regulations so that we can move swiftly. So that's something that we'd also like you to do, is confirm your development team by closing, so by the end of June of 2018. And then we'll look for you to submit a building permit 30 days submit for a building permit 30 days after closing. So this is just one point of clarification. I believe at the information session, I shared with people that we really wanted you to actually start construction 30 days after closing. And we know that that would be very challenging, just given that you'd also need permits. So we are adjusting that statement to say that we'd actually say we'd like you to submit for a building permit 30 days after closing. And we think that that would be more realistic, but also looking to be as expeditious as possible. And then we look for you to start construction by the middle of September of 2018, and then start marketing to new homeowners in December of 2018. So that's a full list of the milestones that we are expecting that all of you who win the bids, but also those that are interested, can see what a sense of urgency we have. We know that it's a real estate transaction, so we know there's many components of creating these affordable home ownership options, but at the same time, know that we will have these milestones that we will need to adhere to as well. So our next slide is just, again, if you have any technical questions that are not able to be answered today, feel free to email vacant to vibrant.dc@dc.gov, and we'll look to answer the questions by email. And in addition, the website for the auction is also posted here again. I believe at this point we'd like to be able to offer time for questions and answers.
Can I just add one thing real quick?
So Matt Cooper from Alex Cooper Auctioneers.
I just wanted to clarify one thing in regards to the registration process. At this point, until the 18th at 1 p.m., you cannot register for the auction. The registration does not open until that time point. On our website, what is available, and the number of, the 500 plus people, what they have done is you can sign the non-disclosure agreement to get into the document room, which has lots of good information. So I didn't want anybody to panic that, registration had been open. Before the conversation even started up here, a couple people asked me, how can I register? So you'll see a big red button that says register to bid, but that's not going to appear until the 18th at 1 p.m. So I just wanted to let everybody know that so they don't think they're missing something.
Thank you, Matt. Thanks. So thanks. So lucky for us, that's in 2 days. So there we go. So I know there are a few questions. I can see hands raised. I would like Drew, Hubbard, Vonda Orders, Matt, Cooper. Could you come up to the front, please? We would like the three to actually manage the questions and answers process. So as everyone's gathering, let's take the first question. What I'd ask you to do is stand, raise your hand, we'll call on you, stand, speak as loudly as you can. We at the podium will repeat the question, and we will do our best to respond. So let's start the questions. Okay, so I think the woman in the second row, 4 people in, I think you were the first question. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. 2 questions. One, are all of the sites environmentally clean? Do you know that there are no environmental problems before people start building? And 2, I don't know if I misunderstood, but your closing or your permits are done by September. Construction starts in September, and you expect that it'll be finished in 3 months?
Good question. So 2 things. One, so the first question was, are all the sites environmentally clean? The answer to that is no. There's not a verification of that. What we can tell you is the title is clean, and so we will transfer to you a clean title, but I can't speak to whether or not the sites are all environmentally clean. Okay. Second, because as the director reminded me, remember we are selling them as is. So that will be something that you all will have to take into consideration. Second, your question about the time frame for completion. So the question was construction start September, marketing to new home buyer in December. It's more about the marketing component. I don't think we're expecting the construction to be completed, but we do want to have some active process about how people can access the unit, what are you looking at, because by then I think you'll know what you're going to build or renovate. So that's our intention, is more about the marketing and outreach, less about completion. You're welcome. Okay, second. Gentleman of front row, fourth. Yes, sir.
Thank you. My question also pertains to the schedule. Is there a chance that the city council may not grant passive approval? How is that a factor in this process?
So the question was, is there a chance that city council will not grant passive approval? For the department, in all cases where we submit something, contract, disposition to city council, there is always a chance that the council may not approve what we put forth. But we do put forth the strong recommendation, and I can say at least in the last 3 years, we have not had that challenge, but I can't speak to other than that. So I would say in the last 3 years, we have not had that difficulty, but there are times when that could possibly happen in the lifespan of the department. Yes, let's go still to second row, gentleman, second in.
Of the lots that have structures on them, are they all like fit to occupy? I'm seeing the difference between vacant and the blight and vacant definition. And then second, if I purchase it as the home buyer, I like the contact in DCRA, but do I have to conform to the schedule if I'm living in it?
So good question. So 2 questions. So the first question was about, I'll answer the second question first. So the second question was about conforming to DCRA if you're a home buyer. So we would like you to work to meet the same schedule, although I do understand that it might be slightly different. So, but we would like to be consistent as far as the schedule completion. And second question, would you remind me what your first question was?
These are vacant lots, but I love the difference between vacant and life and vacant. I was just making sure that if I close it, I can move in that day.
Good question. So the second question was, are the properties that have structures on them, what status are they in? I would give you my personal opinion is that they need significant work. As the pictures get posted online, you'll see some of the interiors, but I would tell you that they need significant work and that you would not be able to move into them on day one. So it would be a renovation plan that you'd have to have in place before you would be able to move you or your family into the home.
To add to that real quick, sorry. Just going to add to it from the properties that do not have interior photos in them would be because it was deemed unsafe to go into the property. So you can extrapolate the condition from that fact that we don't have the photos.
Tag it, I'm it. Sorry, I'm Drew Hubbard. I'm with the Department of Housing Community Development also. I'll be conducting the rest of the Q&A. I think we're just going to keep going up the rows. So, right here, sir.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Stand up and project, please.
So, yeah, my question goes back to this properties that do have structures on them. And I had a chance to drive by them and take a look from the outside, and they look like in really bad shape. And a lot of them had those orange posters that DCRA puts out there, stop work order, illegal construction, all sorts of stuff, which means there's a lot of problems. You're walking into a can of worms with these properties. So my guess is a lot of these properties may have to be just torn down and rebuilt the way that they were looking from the outside at least. So do you treat those as vacant lots, or do you treat those as structures that exist because you have a totally different sale criteria, whether it's structures versus vacant lot, and it goes from 80% to 120%. So that's one of my questions. And do you treat them as new construction where I'm going to get 100% of my money back on the capital improvement I'm going to make to it, or am I going to get 50% back? So there seems to be a lot of gray area in my, for me in that space as well.
So for those questions, oh, you need the question repeated? He was saying that he drove by some of the properties that had structures on them, and when he took a look, he said that they were in need of a lot of work, and he noticed a lot of citations on the properties from DCRA. And sort of, does that mean that some of those properties may need to be torn down? So what I would say is we are working with DCRA and the meeting that Allison mentioned, I think is on the schedule no later than March 18th. That is true. That is true. So unfortunately, prior to bidding, I think it's going to be difficult to assess all of those different things. But DCRA will be assisting winning bidders, and the Office of Planning will be assisting winning bidders with coming up with a plan and working through the permitting process.
So I guess my question would be, so if we have a meeting after, let's say I'm the winning bid, and I go meet with DCRA and they tell me there's thousands of issues with this, which is, I didn't take into account, so it was not just disclosed to us, I can just walk away from the deal and say, go give it to the next buyer? Or do you put it back into the system later on? How do I get my money back? Because what I'm buying is not being fully disclosed by, well, I understand it as is, but as is still requires disclosure. It doesn't matter. Under the law, you still have to provide disclosures. If you don't provide appropriate disclosures, whatever you're going to sell is going to get taken away back from you if you have to go legal route. The courts will not agree with that position.
In order to add to that, there's a stop work orders on a couple of them, and the fees for that could be quite high.
Extremely high.
Well, for properties that the district now owns, we would make sure, and I think we discussed, we'll be granting clear title. So we will not grant title with outstanding liens.
Well,
But I think another part of your question was the difference between the 80% and the 120.
right, exactly.
So that is really based on the color of funding. So whether there's a structure there or not, whether federal funding with it or not, it's going to dictate the 80 or 120.
Okay, yeah, so is that marked on the list?
Yes.
It's in Schedule F. In the document room, it's in Schedule F. If you go in the document room, it's the very first document at the top, and it's also an exhibit to the purchase agreement. It's 6, I believe.
Yeah.
It's 6. So you can't go based off whether or not it has a structure or not. You need to look at what those 6 properties are.
Can I go right here? You, sir. Yep.
Thank you. Okay, so I have a couple questions. So one, you're saying with registration, could we register the 23rd and still be able to bid on every single property?
Yes, but please don't wait till the last minute.
Just find out that, okay.
I'm going to add a little bit to everybody here. My suggestion would be for you to register well in advance, especially for those that are going to be using deposit funds of cashier check or wire transfer to our escrow, which that's in the deposit transmittal form, which again is in the document center. You can also call Alex Cooper, out of this meeting. We could walk you through that. Credit card obviously is quicker. It's very common for credit card companies to believe that when you're putting the $5,000 hold that there's fraud involved. So you may have to call them and let them know that it's not. Again, these are all things that are surmountable if you have time. If you're doing it on the 23rd, it's going to be very tight. So, and I also want to add, just in regards to a last minute thing, and sorry to cut you off, but I think this is important, especially for those that are going to be bidding at the very last second, which I understand there's a lot of game theory to that, which, to each their own. I have absolutely had it where, people are on Wi-Fi and they get a bad connection, or they're on their cell phone, and, it's great that you can bid from these devices, and we make that available, but if you lose your connection or something and it's in the last 30 seconds and you can't bid, that's a problem. So I would suggest for folks that might be in a situation where they're not on a hardwired computer, or they might be questionable about their internet connection, use the max bid functionality in the platform. You can put in, let's say the bid's at 50,000 and you would bid to 100. You can put in 100 and it's only going to bid in an increment over the last bid. And that way, if you have some sort of technical or connectivity issue, it's not going to penalize you. I've unfortunately have had the calls from people that have tried to do a buzzer beater at the last second and miss it. And furthermore, the clock resets to 2 minutes under 2 minutes of bid. So if you bid with 1 second left, it's going to reset to 2 minutes anyway. So I know that was a long answer and a bit off topic, but please don't do things last second.
Okay, can the auction bidder be a person who intends to purchase through an LLC that has not been set up yet? So if you put your name down, you have to be the purchaser.
I think, looking at that, to bid, you need to be a person. When we get to closing, if you form a single purpose entity in which you are the managing member, that will be okay.
Okay.
But I've gotten this question different ways, but that it needs to be that structure. It can't be where you bid and then you just want to sell the fact that you got this property interest from the district to someone else. That doesn't work.
What about if you're
So
representing?
on the winning bidder signs the purchase agreement, you can put your name under an LLC to be formed, and that's okay. We don't have the exact name yet.
That's fine, but you need to put your name.
Thank you.
And then maybe let's try and like 2 questions per person, just because there's a lot of people who have their hands up. Yeah.
I'd like to ask that if there are overseas investors and they would like to participate in the bidding, so is there a resident factor incorporated in it at all, or is residency of USA at all a matter for this type of the auction? That's one question of mine. And there's one question that for the 23rd, you said that it's the 2-minute window which kicks in at the highest bid level. So you are closing the auction at 1 o'clock. So let's say if a winning bidder is there and one another guy comes in and they both lock in their horns and they keep on going. So is there a cutoff to that, or it would go on till it will go on?
We will never stop people from paying more for a property.
Right. Okay, fair enough.
And you can
I don't mean to be
bid
sarcastic,
with
but
you can bid with an entity that exists. So if you, I don't know if that was your first question.
He said
Like a person, an individual.
What I was saying is normally sorry, just a side conversation. We normally have it where whatever they register in is what the contract is signed in, because they're doing a legal transaction by bidding.
But he's saying
someone who lives overseas.
Oh, okay, that was another
Or if you
question.
were representing an investor?
If you're going to bid on behalf, the way we normally do it, please cut me off if it's different in this process, is if, and I'm not really answering the overseas question, I guess directly, are overseas participation allowed, or do you have to be a okay, she's saying no in regards to overseas participation. So you have to be a United States resident?
right. You can be overseas, but you can be a citizen.
Okay. Okay, so that answers your first question. So there was some conversation about when you register to bid, what we do when we fill out the contract. So when you're bidding, you are doing something legal. It's an agreement, and so it is binding. So pretend that you are in person. It happens to be online, but somebody over here asks, as an agent, can I bid on someone's behalf? Unless you have a power of attorney, no, you cannot do that. You would have to have a power of attorney, and that's specifically in the terms. If you bid, and again, stop me if I'm wrong here. If you bid and you do not follow through with the terms of the contract, you would lose your deposit as damages. And a valid excuse would not be that I was bidding on someone else's behalf, and therefore I'm not responsible, they are. If there was a valid power of attorney and legal, documentations that could take you back on that path, then sure, that would be the case. But if you were bidding on someone else's behalf and you don't move forward with it, then you're the one at fault, not the other party.
Well, one last question on this.
Okay, sorry.
The last one is that if a sale does not go through, like the bidder does not perform in the 10%, right? So the second in line, would that person be obligated to get it, or would it be an option for that person to say no because maybe that guy has changed his mind then?
We haven't made a final decision on it. Oh, I'm sorry. He asked if the winning bidder, if that person is not able to perform, will the district automatically go to the second or third bidder on the list? And I'm saying that we haven't made a decision on that. Okay, I'm going to go to this. Yeah, let's go. Person there in the middle. Sure.
Some of this is about the whole maximum bid thing. If there's a structure already on the land and it says it's 4 bedrooms or whatever, and you were saying that the maximum bid is, I don't know, 500,000 or something like that, and then you were saying that the price can go up to whatever, we're not going to stop you. Is there a limit on the maximum? I'm kind of
No, it's not maximum. Depending on what circumstances there might be a maximum. There's a maximum resale or rental value based on AMI level. So the bid price is separate from what you can actually rent or sell it at.
So the house has a structure and it's 4 bedrooms. I can convert it into a 10-bedroom, 10-unit apartment or something like that. That's still allowed or
No.
not?
You have to do a project that can be approved by planning and DCRA.
For lots that are vacant and they're not recorded lots, tax lots, I don't know if you have any knowledge of that. How are you sure that you'll be able to go through DCRA and get a building permit? If you have a lot of lots that are the square starts with 800 and they're not recorded, you can't even pull the plat up for them. So how can we get around that and know that you're not buying, dirt?
I would say the KCD will work with you and with DCRA to get that straightened out.
CDE requirements?
There's no CDE requirements for the auction.
I have 2 quick questions. One, I saw some of the properties are in the courts right now. So are you confirming that they're going to come out of the courts in the 120-day time frame for closing? Is that something that you all are going to make sure will happen?
Yes.
Okay.
Although I'll have to take another look. I feel like we've been scrubbing the list pretty consistently, and we removed anything in which we felt like we wouldn't be able to deliver title in time.
Okay, the second question is piggybacking off of the other gentleman, in regards to some of the properties already have citations on them. Are you ensuring that in the time that you take them over until you get permits, that you will not be responsible for any of the fines that are imposed currently?
That's right.
Real quick, I have 2 questions. At what point in the process period is any of the deposits, down payment, 10% or $5,000 refundable? At what point do you get out of the deal if it's not going to work and you get your money back? If you're not at any point, or
the only way that, and please overrule me if I'm wrong, the only way that I'm aware that the purchaser would be able to get any of their deposit refunded would be in the event that the district cannot give free and clear title.
Okay, all right. The next question is, on the 80% units, is there any DACD grant money that would help with the 80% unit for home buyer?
No, not to purchase and not to renovate. Depending, if you're doing a project as for sale,
Yeah.
your home buyer may be able to qualify for the home purchase assistance program, which
Right,
also comes through the
right,
agency.
right.
So that would be available.
But there is no 15-year forgivable grant money attached to the
Right,
80%.
no.
Okay. And then my last question is, just to clarify, I just want to make sure I'm clear on this because we have a whole home buyers club in Manor. The gentleman that was sitting here was speaking as though he was going to purchase the property as an owner occupant and he was going to live in the property. Okay, so he was going to do this by himself, not as a developer or anything else. In doing that, he still would have, or the home buyer or the person would still have to meet all of the covenants and all of the other criteria that is met, including the income, even though they were going to live there. Is that?
That's right.
Okay.
If someone participates in the auction and you purchase the property and the intent is to renovate it and then live in it, you need to either A, also qualify for the affordable housing component as in you meet the income requirements, or you need to have a deal structured in which, let's say you're building a 3-unit, you can build a 3-unit property, you can live in 1 unit as a market rate unit and then the other 2 can be affordable. So it needs to, you still need to meet the affordable requirement in some form.
Go over here and then back in the middle.
Okay, 2 questions. So in the affordability covenant, they use language where they say it's in perpetuity, but then I thought it's cut off after maybe 15 or 40 years, depending on. So I see a conflict there. Can you clarify on that?
Yes, and then maybe I'll take another look at that, because I know there's a section in which there's blanks for the affordability, and so in those areas where there's blanks, for this auction, the affordability period is 15 years for sale housing and 40 years for rental housing. So I'll make sure that's clear. It's not in perpetuity. The question was, how long does the property need to be affordable? For sale housing, that's 15 years. For rental property, that's 40 years.
And the second question was, can you just expand a little bit on the labor employment covenants? I guess this is trying to, and this is in the declaration of covenants, I guess it's trying to say that the construction team that you hire, the wages have to be a certain amount, like follow those rules when it's had federal money involved in the properties.
Right, that may not be applicable for these types of properties.
Well, what about the ones that have federal funds already attached to
Still may not. I'll clarify that piece, because I'm not sure the size of the project would trigger that.
Okay.
You just referenced no CBE requirements for the auction. I thought the covenants document does reference a CBE requirement. Could you just?
Yeah, I'm sorry, that's a good point. I thought, I should let him finish the question. I thought the question was, do you need to be a CBE to participate in the auction? The answer to that is no. But in terms of having the property transferred, there may be a CBE requirement. I think right now our documents say you need an acknowledgement from the DSLBD about that and to work with them to see what requirements you might need to meet. We're saying that you'll need to comply with what the Department of Small Business, Local Business Development, what they require for these projects. I can't say definitively that you will need to find a CBE partner for these properties, but you'll need to call that office to see.
In terms of the contractor that you use, or in terms of the purchasing entity?
The contractor that you use. Way over there.
Yeah, still a question about the construction milestones. It seems like the developer could be in default if they don't start construction within 45 days or 40 days of the declaration of covenants. May I suggest that that's kind of subject to meeting of the DCRA because that's a big question mark in your the title of the property is compared to the DCRA.
I agree with you.
Is that going to change in time?
We will change it in we'll change it in documents. Initially, closing was not going to happen until you got your permits, but I think the sense now is that we will let people close and apply for the permit, so I'll make that change.
Yes, question about the CBE, you could clarify for me. It was my understanding that there were at least 2 or 3 of the properties that were being auctioned, that were being set aside, and only registered CBEs could pursue those 3 properties. You had to be a certified CBE to bid on those properties. But your last conversation money that.
So as one of the other Vacant to Vibrant initiatives, the agency put out through the Office of Contracting and Procurement a solicitation in which only CBEs could apply to renovate properties that will continue to be owned by the Department of Housing. So in those cases, the CBE would sort of act as the Department of Housing's contractor. And so that, and it's correct, that was 3 properties, and that went out on December 22nd. That's different here than the auction. In the auction, the winning bidder will get title to the property. But for the CBE solicitation, CBEs who are contractors can bid to perform renovations on properties owned by DOC.
Well, second follow-up to that then. That RFP that went out on the 27th, do you know if it's closed or been awarded yet?
It hasn't been awarded. It will close tomorrow.
I still have time.
Right, and we may do another solicitation like that in the future. Let me get you.
Question. The dynamics, once you deposit the $5,000, you only can bid on one property, or you can move it around?
Here, I'll go.
Because if at the last moment your property is gone.
The answer to your question is yes, but I'll try to go over the process with everybody. So the way it would work is with the credit card. First of all, just to be clear with everybody, the $5,000 is simply a hold. The only way that hold would turn into a charge is if you do not increase the deposit to 10% of the purchase price within 48 hours of the close of the sale, and/or do not sign the documents within 24 hours of when they've been sent to you. So again, and that's on the website, but the $5,000 deposit would then be released once we get that 10% in our escrow account. So I'm gonna keep on going to answer your question. So the $5,000 allows you to bid on one property and be the let me rephrase that. It allows you to bid on a property. When you put in a bid, at least for a microsecond, until somebody may outbid you, when you put in a bid, it's a scenario where you will see your deposit amount actually go down to 0. There's like a little area that shows your deposit amount, which you're not seeing now because that part of the bidding room is not on the platform is not available because registration and bidding haven't opened yet. So if you get outbid, that $5,000 is immediately eligible to be used to bid on another property, and so on and so forth. But any property that you bid on, be prepared to win it at that number, and that that $5,000 will not be released from your credit card until we get that 10% deposit. So if you are interested in buying 2 properties, for example, you would definitely want to put $10,000 in, and just as a heads up, some people get startled. For those that use the max bid functionality, which again I just recommend, if you bid, it will like immediately say you've been outbid. If let's say a property, let's say somebody has a max bid of 100,000 and you bid 50, 60 is going to show up in a split instant. It's going to bid immediately. So if you see that, it's not like there's some human sitting there doing that. It's because people use the max bid functionality, which, going back to game theory, there's something to be said for that as well, that it comes in very quickly. But again, there's no last second bidding where you can just get it. It always resets back to 2 minutes. So.
I have the follow-up question is on the schedule. There's, I'm an architect, there's people that don't hire the architect until closing. And, because they don't wanna take a chance on not getting the house. So it's a little bit ambitious to have, you know, people follow that. And then the DCRA usually takes 3-4 months to approve anything, any house in the district, unless.
So in terms of the closing and the development team, I do think we will allow, if closing's by June 30th, I think we will allow until July 30th to submit for the building permit. And then in terms of working with DCRA, we have flagged these properties for DCRA. Part of the reason they're doing the meeting on March 18th is to help walk people through the process. And so we definitely anticipate that we will do whatever we can, and DCRA is committed to doing this as well, to move these properties through as quickly as possible. Now, they're going to tell you that, kind of like to your point, if you don't hire an architect until very late in the process, or you don't hire an architect who's familiar with the process and then is not able to produce drawings that can be approved or not able to respond to comments quickly, that will hold you up. But DCRA is committed to reviewing plans right away.
One question about that. And so if you buy it for investment purposes, you sell it to affordable housing, how long do they, well, obviously they have to keep the 15-year covenant for the purpose, right? Now, let's say in 5 years they decide to rent it, do they have to go to the 40-year from the day they purchase, or how does it work? Because you would have to release, disclose that information to the purchaser.
Actually, in some ways, that's a simple answer.
Okay.
If someone goes in and buys a property as an affordable purchaser, they cannot then turn around and rent it out.
But never, or how long is it?
For at least for 15 years.
15. Okay, so then after 15 years, if they turn it into a rental, do they do 40
Then
years?
actually, after that, they would not be subject to the affordable
Right.
covenant.
Okay.
If they're going past that. Okay, I'm going to go to the back and then come back.
The document is clear. It says conditions precedent, the district's obligation to close. 5.2.1, the obligation of the district to convey the property and perform other obligation is required to perform on the closing date shall be subject to the conditions precedent stated below. Letter C states, developer shall obtain a fully executed CBE acknowledgement or agreement if applicable. So CBE acknowledgement is an acknowledgement from DSLB notifying you that you are a certified CBE. Is that not correct? We know of no other program that they certify businesses or developers.
That's correct, but then again, at the end of it says if applicable. So that's my point is I can't speak for certain in terms of what those requirements will be.
It takes them 3 months to approve a CBE though.
They do.
I mean, it seems like the bidder has to be a CBE.
We understand that you're not saying that you don't know what the requirements to meet that obligation is. What we're asking is that obligation, once fulfilled through that office, a requisite to be a developer in this program. That's what it states.
Okay, at this point, I want to say two things. That we're not required, we're not making the auction subject to being a CBE. If we were to do that, then we kind of have to start over. So for now, we are not limiting the auction to CBE. That being said, I suppose if DSLBD comes back and says that you need to become a CBE, then we would have to then allow you to become a CBE. But
Let's stop you from being affordable.
oh no, it won't. It would not stop you. It would not stop you. And I feel as though the agency would then try to assist in terms of. I also can't say the agency will waive those requirements for you too. I'm not sure if that's true, but we would certainly work with you to be able to make this deal work.
Is that document required to close?
Either the acknowledgement, the CBE, or a waiver will be required to close.
Going back to the question about the state of the properties, specifically, I know there's one property that the developer went into default and went to court, and are we to assume that the structure as built, even though it's unoccupied, it's never been occupied, is legal through DCRA zoning? Because in between zoning codes have changed, or do we start from scratch with DCRA and permitting? Like we can't take anything that's built as being existing.
For purposes of, his question is that there are several properties on the list in which and these are properties with structures on them in which some form of renovation has been done. But that, in that case, those properties were then acquired by the Department of Housing as part of a settlement with the Office of Attorney General. And so the issue is that where some of those renovations are no longer to code, will, I guess, there be an ability to sort of grandfather that in, or can those structures be assumed to be legal? I would say, for purposes of bidding, I would not assume that to be the case, and I would look at a possibility where that may need to be torn down.
How is the sale of the ADU units managed?
Through the Department of Housing and Community Development, there is an office that helps with administering the affordable dwelling units and the inclusionary zoning program. And so as you get closer to being ready to sell those properties, you can use that office. They can conduct a lottery for your property to find eligible buyers.
Is that required, or can you?
That's not required. But if you're not going to go through the lottery, you will need to have a marketing plan approved. So, ideally, we don't want, I'm going to sell all the units to all my family members. We prefer not to have that. So a marketing plan and/or using the lottery for the Department of Housing would be how you would be able to sell or rent your affordable unit. And then after that is done, for the owner or renter, if they have questions, they can also go back to that office.
Say you purchase a property and then you sell it for the affordable cost, and I'm going to ask you to go back to that sheet. Say that person takes it, buys it, and then a year later, are they able to sell it and make a big profit on it?
No.
Okay.
So part of the documents in the document room, and I'm glad that people are reading them, is that affordable housing covenant will be recorded at closing against that property. So that will
person
prevent,
is
right.
entitled to keep that as long as that 15 to 40 years mark.
Right, so if they went and tried to sell it, as soon as a title search was run, it would come up with that affordable housing restriction, and they would not be able to give someone clear title.
Yeah. My second question is, with 80% of the properties being vacant lots, only 2 of those properties are basically deemed not buildable, like for greenery, but you wouldn't run into a problem where they say, hey, you can't build on this for any reason, if there was something that was originally footprinted on that. Basically, you're not going to get, blindsided if you bought a property that they say you can't build on.
We don't anticipate that. What we think may be an issue. He had a question about unbuilt, or any of the lots unbuildable, and I think they're not in the auction. The ones that we know are unbuildable are not in this auction. Some of the vacant lots that are in the auction, we are working with DCRA to confirm that there were once utilities at the site, because we know if there were not utilities at the site, that will cause delay and additional costs.
Can we go back there and we can work our way up? Go ahead, ma'am.
So, can each have funds be used for down payment? If somebody was buying to live in it, would they meet the income guidelines?
Yes, that HVAC can be used as a down payment for the to buy the completed homeowner unit. It can't be used to purchase the property through the auction.
2 questions. The first, you had mentioned federal funds on some of the existing properties. Are those liens on the properties at this point will be extinguished at closing, or are we taking subject to that? And secondly, is the purchase agreement that we're signing within 3 days of award, is that online at this point? Can we read the purchase agreement?
Yes. Matt can talk about how to log in and do that, and also the information about which properties were originally purchased with federal funds. There's no existing lien against those properties. It's just because they were purchased with federal funds, the affordability limit is a little bit lower. Back there.
Can you say which ones,
With the
what
sweater.
line does it say which those are? Does it say which those are?
Yes,
It does, thank you.
Are there, is there a condo conversion fee applied to properties that are now rental that become wholesale property in this process?
I don't believe that any of these properties you would have that situation.
And they mentioned something about photos of the interior of the building, so those aren't posted?
They'll be up by the, 6 p.m. this evening, they'll be posted.
It's a little bit different, but it's about if I, for instance, wanted to live in the property, so I would be one household or one unit, but then later, let's say, I wanted to create 2 units. Does the schedule only hold for the first unit because it will be affordable housing up to 1 unit, but then later something else may change, or do I have to fulfill the entire dwelling and completely renovate it all at once?
So the schedule would apply to the project that is approved and the project you agree to build by the time you get to closing. So if you, and this may make sense, if you go to closing and say you're building a 1 unit, then that would be what this schedule is
Well,
for.
yeah, existing.
Now, if you change that in the middle, the problem is you have to then come back to DHCD for approval, and we may not approve that.
It wouldn't be in the middle, it'd be long after.
Right, but yeah, after you closed and built
Yes.
it, and we've been able to then release you from our construction covenant, because keep in mind, the district will record a construction covenant at the time of closing, and I think somebody was pointing out some of the terms of that, in which you are agreeing to then complete your project in 18 months, not 3 months, so don't worry about the start of the marketing. You would have 18 months after closing to complete your project, so I would not attempt to then change it until after you've met that obligation.
The other thing was someone mentioned that you need certain requirements for who to hire for construction. Is that actually the case? Is that not the case? Does it depend? This is for the existing structure. Do you have specific guidelines of what type of contractor you have to hire? Or is it, can you bring in who you know and who works for you?
Right, that has to do with the certified business entity, and then there is a 35% contracting requirement in which you use a CBE. And with that, I sort of said, if you're a CBE, then I guess you qualify. You may need to bring in a partner, or you may be able to get a waiver.
Okay.
Rhonda, I think you were talking about my question about the labor costs.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like who actually has, like if I need to hire an electrician, does it have to be a specific type of, exactly, yeah, exactly.
I don't believe that Davis-Bacon, that's the federal, it does. The federal Davis-Bacon requirements will not apply to these.
Okay, because they say it's federal funds, and I didn't know that's what it was.
So I will, I'll make a couple of edits to the construction covenant, and then that'll come back up and go out to everyone.
Thank you very much.
Can I use it as a segue real quick about the document room? Okay, cool. I just want, and also just breaking news, I just got a text message from my coworker that the pictures are up. The interior photos are up. So you can look on your phones now and it'll be there. In regards to the document room, it's very important that anybody that really wants to participate in the auction signs up. When you go on the details page, so you go to dhcd.alexcooper.com, you go onto there's all the properties listed, you go into the property, and in there's 3 tabs. One of the tabs is called Documents, and to get in there, you would just you have to create an account, which is free. You would just have to put your name, phone number, email address, and that allows you to get into the document room. It's really important, A, that you read the documents, and also, as Vonda is talking about these changes here, if there are changes made to the documents, many of you may have gotten these emails already, our system will email you that those changes have been made. You can't always 100% rely on email, unfortunately, so, you should still go back and check. But that being said, you should be getting an email that lets you know which documents have changed. So it's really crucial that you sign up into the document room, and then you would then, if you decide to bid, would use that same account. You'd add a physical address as well as either a credit card or you'd be using the deposit transmittal form to get into the ability to register to bid. And also, I just this may be redundant, but I'm just going to do it because so many people brought it up. In that Schedule F, here are the properties that are the 80% requirement with the federal money. Again, it's on there, but I'm just going to say it because it's been such a common question. It's 30, and they're all northwest quadrants. It's 36 Channing Street, 1132 Columbia Road, 160 Adams Street, 905 R Street, 1422 Shepherd Street, and 523 Kennedy Street. Again, they're all northwest quadrant. And that's all on the site, but those are the properties that are 80%, and everything else is 120. You want me to repeat it? Sure. But again, it's all available on the document room. But it's 36 Channing Street, 1132 Columbia Road, 160 Adams Street, 905 R Street, 1422 Shepherd Street, and 523 Kennedy Street. And again, all northwest quadrant.
Thank you.
So in the event that a property is initially purchased and rented, based on the affordability covenant, at some point in the future, say that property is sold, how is the appreciation handled? Is there some sort of equity sharing formula?
So for those owners, they would go through the department's affordable dwelling unit division, and the same price schedule that is on the auction website. That is updated annually, and that along with working with that division will let them know what they can then sell the property for.
Okay, so any appreciation or equity is that of that current.
Right, and they have a somewhat complicated formula that is tied to the consumer price index plus some additional points for that.
Right. Okay.
The rent will go up with time as the things that
Right.
the average is.
Yeah, and so rent will go up. I don't know if it's the exact same calculation, but also as the incomes go up. So
40 years
right.
it will be higher than what it
Right.
is.
So what a person's income at 80% is in 2018 will be different in 2020.
But just a quick follow-up on that. So is that the equity for each individual unit, or is that being calculated for the entire building?
It would be calculated for the unit.
So if you're selling it as individual units, but if you're selling it as one big rental unit, is there any
so that is different. If your project is a rental property with, let's say, 5 rental units in it, if you went to sell it, you could, I suppose, sell it on the open market subject to that rental covenant, and obviously following all of the other rental housing rules for the district, including the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. So that's a little bit different.
I just had a follow-up question about the possibility of there being any federal liens, and you said no. Do you know if there are any other types of liens that are on the properties, or all of these properties have been cleared of all of those liens? So the only thing that we would have to come to the closing table with is whatever we did plus the 3% or $3,000, whichever is more.
That's correct. So the district will make sure that it can convey clear marketable title at closing.
Okay, so clear title means no liens either.
So, I have a question regarding your resale chart versus using the formula that's in your disclosure documents. So, are we using your sheet here, or could we use the chart? I mean, or could we use the formula that's provided?
I believe that document should have been updated in the document room. I don't know when you looked at it last.
Last night?
Whether or not the resale formula, the affordable housing covenant, which I thought that the current affordable housing covenant cited to the chart. It'll be the chart. At least, well, I'll say this. At least when it gets to closing and as you are deciding on your bid price, use the chart.
Is the formula in the affordability covenant itself somewhere in there? I know it's a big document.
It was at one point.
Okay.
because the formula for you as the sort of investor, developer, or owner, occupier, you should refer to the chart. To the extent, you should refer to the chart. To the extent there was a formula, that was really designed for people when they go to resale.
And my other question is, let's say we buy one of the properties which maybe currently at the 1 unit, we want to change that into a multi-unit, much longer process, more agencies involved, other rules and regulations kick in. Is that allowed? And then, how does it affect the timeline?
Our preference is that you propose something that you can build as of right. And so if you want to do something that's dramatically different, I guess you'll have to discuss it with the agency, and it may not be approved.
We do about 4 more. We start here.
Well, let's say you have a 7-unit, 51% of the units have to be under that affordability covenant. The other 3, they could either be rented or market rent, or could they be sold at whatever price you want, or does the sale price have to follow the affordability schedule? Because if it did, then it would be 100% affordability.
Right, so in that example, 4 units would need to be affordable and 3 units could be market rate.
And you can sell them. You don't have. Are you limited to just renting them if the other 4 are rentals?
No, I think though, I don't know, as you're looking at what is marketable, my sense would be so you build that project and you've got 7 units, sometimes people who are buying a unit want to be, let's say in a condo project where everyone is a homeowner as opposed to some people are renting and some people are buying. So I think as you're proposing that, our preference would be to either have it be a rental property or be a for sale property.
Okay, my follow-up question is for the rent, you have a rental schedule where, for example, a 4-bedroom at 80% MFI, the max rent is $26.50, but then it says maximum allowable rent is minus utilities, and then you have a utility schedule. So are you taking that number for max rent and then subtracting the estimated utilities to get your max rent price?
I'll have to, maybe after this, we can take
Okay.
what you're looking at. Let me go to him because he hasn't asked a question. I'll go with the 3 people who haven't asked a question yet.
We'll be around.
I'm probably not like most people here. I'm a teacher here in DC. And so when I look around the room, I see a lot of investors. And when I look at the online auction process, I'm looking at it from the sense of a homeowner. Has the mayor or the department considered releasing some of its inventory for public service workers so that we are solely able to bid? Because I feel like I'm about to be outbid.
So the mayor and the administration is always looking at different options. Our feeling though with the properties that are in this auction is that they are not good candidates to just make available to a person with no experience renovating properties, because these properties are either vacant lots and or in very poor condition.
No, to follow the economy, you don't have to be an investor to have experience with flipping or...
That's true. That's true. And there's nothing preventing teachers and others from participating in this auction. But our sense is that these properties were not good candidates for the kind of program that you're thinking about.
Are there any in the works though?
Maybe in the future. I guess in terms of this portfolio of the 90 properties that are in the department's portfolio, is we did not have a lot of properties in which that there was already a unit in place that was in fairly good shape that only maybe needed, a new kitchen and maybe some other minor renovations. That's the properties that we are at this point trying to dispose of are ones that are either in very poor condition or are vacant lots.
Two questions. I'm an adjoining property owner to properties at auction, and my question is, one, we were under the impression with certain of these properties, which are in various stages of development, that the interior structure would be destroyed and rebuilt because it's been open to the elements for the last, call it 6 years. I didn't see any requirement that happen in the packet.
is that requirement going to be built in, or could we be assured that DCRA, DCHD will ensure that that happens?
I guess I would need to know the specific property, for all of
It's
these.
160 Adams Street.
Okay. For all of these properties, the expectation is that they'll be fully renovated.
By fully renovated, I mean the structural elements will be rebuilt so as to.
I think that's a part of being, fully renovated.
Okay. Second question is, as an adjoining owner, I understand the affordable housing covenant, how it works. Is there any issue with taking a portion of that property and adjoining it to an adjacent lot, attaching it and making that part of the living space of the adjacent property?
I'm not sure. If it's not a part of the auction, then I suppose the winning bidder would then have to negotiate.
Was there anything stopping you from doing that as a winning bidder?
We would not allow that to be something that would prevent closing from taking place. But after the person has taken title to the property, I suppose there is nothing preventing them from purchasing other property.
Well, if you already own the adjoining property, my point is you could combine that with the other property that's adjoining, or at least a portion of it, as long as you maintain compliance with the affordable housing covenant, the 50% rule, right?
I guess I would just need to know more specifically.
It's a let's call it a 3-bedroom house right now. Let's say you turn that 3-bedroom house into 2 separate units. Could you take half of it and combine it with the adjoining property, as long as you comply with the 50% affordable housing units requirement?
But it's 51, so it doesn't
50.
force you to do both.
That depends whether it's 80% or 120. The 120 is 50. Oh, Adams is you're right. Okay, you're right.
I would say no, just to keep things simple. The intent is you can bid on property that is currently owned by the district and available through the auction, and then propose a project in which that property is the only property necessary in order for you to complete your project.
Right. Okay, so you could do though 2 affordable units and take one of them for yourself.
Yes, that you could.
Is there a penalty for not meeting those deadlines? And then second part to that, upon resale, so you're expecting completion of construction within about 18 months. Is there a deadline after that for resale?
After the project's completed in 18 months, then the expectation would be that it's either sold or rented to, ideally, an affordable purchaser at that point. In terms of penalties, our construction covenant does allow the district to take the property back if there's a complete failure to complete the project. So that's a part of any disposition with the Department of Housing, and really any disposition with the district. If the district conveys property to a private party for a project, the district almost always has a right to re-enter and take it back if it's not successful. That being said, with the different deadlines, if the developer is diligently working and there is a reason and they're keeping us informed as to what's going on, we will, obviously we want that person to be successful, because in all cases what we want is a renovated property, and these properties, just as this homeowner is next to 160 Adams Street, at the end of that we want the property to be renovated. So we will obviously work with people to make that happen.
Last few.
So, just to make sure that I'm understanding this correctly, and I'm probably piggybacking on the question that was asked earlier. If a multifamily structure is built on a vacant lot, you have to have at least 51% affordable up to the 120 AMI, as long as there's no federal money involved in the project. The other 49% can be sold at market. Is that correct? Or
Not exactly. If it's a property that is not one of those 5 or 6 that Matt mentioned that are the federal ones, then 50% of the units need to be affordable. So if you built 2 units, one needed to be affordable and one could be market rate, and the one that's affordable can go up to 120% of area median income.
Okay. And with that being said, I believe the young lady asked if one could be rented and one could be sold. Is that correct or incorrect?
That is correct, but as I said to her, the preference would be it either be for sale or rented. But so we will take a look at the project.
If
Take one last.
you said the rental covenant is 40 years.
Right.
Last one right here.
So to piggyback.
We'll be around.
So to piggyback on what he was saying, let's just say.
We'll take one more since he already asked questions.
Go ahead. You're doing a 7-unit building. You want to keep 3 market and 4 affordable. You want to sell the 3 market, but rent the 4 affordable, right? At some point, you would have to transfer from the developer to the individual 4 affordable units. But the investor still wants to hold on to those and rent those out. Does that violate the covenant of selling to someone if that investor does not qualify for 120? You understand what I'm saying?
But they're gonna rent.
They plan on renting. But at some point, a transfer has to happen legally.
I think it's okay for the investor to continue to own those 4 units and maintain them as rental properties.
Thank you.
Last one.
Thank you so much. I want to speculate a little bit on the actual auctioning of it. I don't know if you've done one in DC before. My question would be, speculating a little bit, do your properties, trying to look into the auction, do they normally go for maybe what the CMAs are, or the appraisal values? Do you have any idea typically what properties? So I'm trying to think in terms of actually.
So I'll focus. I'll focus on my 2 cents in regards to this auction because that's why we're here. While looking at CMAs, our competitive market analysis for the market rate units is an important thing because they will be reflected with market rates. The investor, or the developer, or homeowner, or whoever's buying this, really needs to run their numbers very specifically off of what the affordability covenant is going to do in regards to the max sale price. If the max sale price, which specifically I think in all those Northwest ones we mentioned, is over potentially, the market would bear over what the affordability covenant is limiting you to, then you need to ignore what the market sale prices are, and price per square foot or whatever it may be in the area, and pay attention to your product that you're developing because you're in a unique situation. So my hope is when everybody bids that they're paying close attention to that and they're bidding with that in mind, because if you're bidding and not paying attention to the limitations of the max sale price or the max rental price of the affordability covenant, and you're just going based off of market rate, it's very likely in some of these locations that you are going to be in the red at the end of the project, may not be able to complete it, whatever it may be. It would result in you not being successful. So please just be very cognizant of that. You would never hear me dampen a sale price in a regular market rate private sale, but I really want to see the district's auction be successful, and in their mind what's successful is getting these affordable units to market. And if you overpay and you're not paying attention and you haven't crunched your numbers, and then you get halfway through the construction and can't finish, nobody wins. So pay attention there, please.
We'll be around after and answer more questions. I want to be respectful of folks' time, but thanks for coming out. Please visit the website, and as was said, register early, bid often, and let's get this done. Thanks.